Um, Good morning, good evening, wherever you are around the globe. My name is Sarah Nyibak, and I will be your moderator for today. I welcome you to this important discussion where we'll be discussing South Sudanese women entrepreneurs' coping mechanism in the current economic climate in South Sudan. Thank you all for joining. Our panelist for today is Miss Giden. Miss Giden is in the room. She will get to introduce herself more later. We also have Ms. Rose Achindil Katiak and Dr. Noela in the room with us today. So what we are going to be discussing is about coping mechanism in the current economic climate in South Sudan. We know that gender equality is both a moral and economic imperative. Closing the gap, the gender gap, must be a central part of any strategy to create more sustainable and inclusive economies and societies. It's about fairness and equity, the realization of individual aspiration and economic empowerment. South Sudanese women have been involved in entrepreneurship activities to support their families for generations, making up more than half of South Sudan population. Women are often the sole breadwinners for their families, yet due to the patriarchal society, their formalities business progress is often limited. Furthermore, women are sometimes subjected to abuse and harassment while in their place of business. Currently in South Sudan, women entrepreneurs are facing many challenges, including the scarcity of dollars, high inflation, high prices for items in the market. This situation has made life more difficult for the women entrepreneurs. So in South Sudan today, we would like to hear from our women in business about their coping mechanism and recommendation that will help other women in business areas so that they can be able to cope more. So before we start our discussion, let me now take the opportunity to introduce our panelists fully. In the room here, we have Ms. Rose Achindel. She's a peace activist, mediator, entrepreneur, peace mobilizer, and a conflict resolution negotiator. Rose is the executive director of Legacy for African Women and Children Initiative. In the room also we have Dr. Noela Moga. She is an anesthesiologist and an entrepreneur. After seeing the lack of our stories in written form, Dr. Moga decided to start Taste of South Sudan to preserve and share the South Sudan food recipes, culture, and tradition. Some of the recipes are available on the blog tasteofsouthsudan.com, and videos may be found on YouTube. As a physician, Dr. Moga is interested in natural skincare, led to her developing the Taste of South Sudan beauty products geared toward providing clients with luxury organic skincare. Taste of South Sudan shea butter products are superior moisturizers for body and hair made from organic and refined shea butter nilotic from South Sudan. So I want now to talk to the panelists individually, and I want to start with Dr. Noela Moga. And before asking Dr. Noela Moga, we have Miss Margaret Kiden in the room. She's also a US-based creative entrepreneur from Western Equatoria, South Sudan. Kiden is the co-founder and creative director at Junubia Media, a digital media agency that specializes in branding, marketing, and business development solutions for minority and women-owned small business with a background in marketing. Kiden has managed about 3.1 million in advertising budgets for global nonprofit across various sectors. Her passion is centered on empowering founders, entrepreneurs through a blend of creativity and strategy, bringing realms of art, culture, media, and commerce. So thank you so much for tuning in with us today. And I'd like to start with Dr. Noela. Please tell us about your business, what motivated you to venture into this sector, and what has your journey been like? You're welcome, Doctor.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. So my name is Dr. Noela Moga. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, South Sudan Women's Intellectuals, for this opportunity to speak about my business. So to go right into it, I started out trying to create a cookbook. But a cookbook is such a daunting task. So I decided to make recipes available one at a time on my blog. And that led me to another passion of mine, which is skincare and creating homemade products. And then I found out the shea butter is such a superior moisturizing agent for the body. And I started selling that in the US. And then people in South Sudan were asking me, we want this. Can you send us some? Can you sell it here? Is a business for it? And so I launched my business in South Sudan in 2020 unofficially. And then in 2021, we incorporated. And so that is how Taste of South Sudan Shea Butter organic line was created. So we are very proud of what we're doing. We employ women within South Sudan, giving them opportunities to make some money. And then we try to be as professional as possible, because I, as a physician, I make sure that the products have good quality. I test them out, and we want to be a legitimate organic skin beauty brand within South Sudan and within the world, because I still sell the products within the United States. So because of that, we make sure that we have very great packaging. We launch campaigns every season. We advertise via social media, and we have many modes of delivery using any mode of transportation, whether it's border, it's US mail, it's by ship, by air, or customers can also come and pick up. So that is a short introduction to my business. And I will turn over to Mrs. Nyebak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Moga. This is really inspiring, and what you're doing is very inspiring. So now I want to move on to Ms. Rose Achindel, and I want her to tell us the same thing about her business and what motivated her to venture into the same business. Ms. Rose, you're most welcome.
Yes, hello. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ms. Rose.
All right, thank you. Good morning and good afternoon from all our followers and my colleagues, panelists. It is a great pleasure to see you again once again. My name is Rose Achindel. This is my second time to share my experience into entrepreneurship. I am once in my lifetime, of course, motivated by entrepreneurship because it is part of life. And as a woman, I find myself doing it because I feel having financial freedom and self-reliance. So my business started when I was in Kampala in school, and I had to join Alliance in Motion Global. They sell the products, and these products are also important. They are used by people who have diabetes, people who have high blood pressure, and I took it as something that I have to do it so that I also help some of the people who are having the same situation. And it is also supporting me as a woman and as someone who is also, trying to support my family, as Sarah put it before. So the motivation is that what is the current situation that we are going through, not only the situation we are seeing now in our country, but all over. During the days when we were in the school, we see our mothers is struggling so much, supporting us in school and doing alcohol brewing just in order to make us go to school. So you find to pick things from where they were supporting you from, and you take it ahead. And it is the same thing that will support you, and it will also motivate other people, and it will motivate other young women. So with the program that I was doing, I was able, of course, to connect with some women in South Sudan, and they were also selling the same products, and some of them also joined the program, and they find it very, very useful, and they were able to support themselves financially instead of depending on their family members like husbands and the brothers. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Miss Rose, for being resilient and for showing us that it's actually very imperative for a woman to be economically independent. Moving forward to Miss Giden YY Barbara, I want us to tell us about your business, your journey, and what motivated you. Over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Are you hearing me? Is everyone hearing me? Okay, wonderful. Well, good morning to all of the viewers and listeners. So happy and honored to be a part of this great panel. And thank you for introducing me as well. I would say my journey starting out in business is actually really simple. I started out just being asked lots of different questions by friends, by family, because I'm into designing graphics and things of that nature. So friends and family would ask me, "Hey, can you do this? How do you do this?" So people would always come to me for sort of guidance and strategy on how to build a logo or how do we create this flyer. And so that was always sort of like a hobby for me, and I never really took it seriously until I journeyed into the realm of podcasting, where I was put in a position to have to develop a full brand of my own, and sort of nurture that brand and grow that brand and learn things along the way. And through podcasting with my co host, we started noticing a gap really in the space of marketing and saying, hey, you know, there's something here. There's something that our people are not getting here. So we decided to talk about how we can form an entity that can help other, not just business people, but also content creators sort of push out the things that they're working on. So long story short, I started out just doing graphics, graphic design for family and friends, then got into the realm of podcasting, and then now started a full business. So what we do at Junibia Media is really in the realm of branding and digital marketing. Our focus is on empowering small business owners who are struggling to find their footing in the digital space. So we really help them sort of find their voice and find the right, develop the right marketing strategy that can help them gain the traffic that they want. So thank you, and back to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Giden, for the creative content that you are creating for South Sudanese. And I believe South Sudanese young women and women are going to be inspired. I don't know if they're looking for content creating. How will they find you? Hopefully, we'll put that information up before we conclude later. For now, I just want to ask Ms. Moga, given the current challenging economic environment in South Sudan, how is your business surviving?
Myself. Um, that is a very valid and challenging question. The issues we're facing very high inflation rate. Today, as I know it, $100 in South Sudan will get you 200,000 SSP, depending on where you're exchanging that money. And what happens is that a lot of traders have to price their goods at the dollar rate because every day the rate is changing. So you price your good at the dollar rate, and then you try and you check daily what the rate is so that you can offer your customers the right amount. Because if you don't offer them at the right price, you are losing money. So what happens also is that across the board, the civil servant salary hasn't increased despite the high inflation. So that means that what they're getting paid in SSP has less value. All the traders basically have to increase their prices to make any profit. Okay. So now what we have is a lot of our regular citizens have to conserve their money to buy the necessary things for their life, like food, medicines, transport to get to work, or pay for their school children. So it means that our products, which are good quality, obviously, and which in order to produce and in order to acquire the original ingredients, we pay a high rate for that. When we charge our regular rate, most of the citizens consider our goods now to be in the luxury category. So we end up having to market mostly to people who are resistant to inflation, and those are the people who are getting paid in dollars, or the people who are the 1%, 2% in the country, or the expatriates. So we end up having to go to bazaars, to one of those open air shopping days in hotels and places like that, because there we find a lot of customers who are expatriates, who have the spending dollar to spend on these goods. So we really hope that the economic situation stabilizes, because it is squeezing families and it is squeezing businesses as well. So our goal is right now, we have to keep on with our quality. We cannot reduce the quality, because we want to be known for quality and for making good products. So sometimes this means we have to make products in smaller containers, because whereas a person cannot afford the normal bottle of shea butter, they can still, when they want to give themselves a treat, they'll buy a smaller container that is priced at a lower price range than the big container. And then it forces us to be creative. So we need to basically create different product lines, still at a good quality, but so that there's a range for customers to choose from. And that's what I'll say for now, but I'll be happy to come back to this question later. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Moga, and for your valuable contributions. And I know a lot of businesses are trying to cope so that they still remain in the market. I want to roll back to Ms. Giden again, and I want to ask her, how are the women, especially those operating in small scale business in the informal sector, able to cope with this economic hardship in South Sudan?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the question. I think coping with economic hardship is something that is difficult. A lot of times you will have to focus on meeting your overhead, and in a economy that's on a downturn, that's not necessarily that something that people are excited about. So what I would say as maybe a piece of advice to dealing with an economy that's on a downturn is A, not sacrificing your quality. I think that's something that should stay the same. And B, also being flexible and paying attention to what the market needs at that point in time, right? So if the market is asking you to, let's say, come down on your pricing a little bit, then maybe that's what you would have to do. If the market is gravitating towards one product more than the other, then you can shift your focus there. So I really think the key to navigating through an economy that's on the downturn is your flexibility and your adaptability, right? And that's what sort of makes the businesses that determines which businesses make it out and which businesses don't. I hope that answers the question. And back to you, Sarah. So what I'll add, as we're waiting for Sarah to hop back in and join us, what I will add is in my experience here in the States, because most of the people that we work with are stateside. In my experience, what I've seen is while we're going through inflation and an economy that's on a downturn, is having to come up, I would say being creative with your pricing, I think is really important. So, for instance, we have a client that's a hotel owner. So, we work on price engineering with this client so that she can continue to gain business and sort of make it out of this climate right now. So, again, just to kind of reiterate my point, I think it's important to adapt to the current environment and then also just be a little flexible. I think no business can be recession proof, but you can sort of set yourself up for success by having the right mindset. Yeah, Ms. Rose, we would love to hear from you on what you think about this question. So, Noella, I know that you said that you could have more to add because that was a really challenging question. I'm curious to know what else did you think was something that's important in terms of the question that Sarah asked?
Well, usually when you have high inflation, some people basically end up going out of business because their goods are no longer essential. So what you want to position yourself is as someone who's selling something that's essential. So in an economic downturn, you really want to hone in on your regular customers and you want to start offering them loyalty-based programs. You want to have something where you create a subscription plan where perhaps it's like, okay, it's time for your order. Ms. Kiden, would you like your usual delivery? And if you hear Kiden grumbling about the price, you say, okay, for our loyal customers, we will offer them 20%, just something special for you. So you want to keep your regular customers dear and near to you, and you want to visit them and to give them small perks or small little incentives so that even when they come back, when the economy comes back and they end up having money, they remember you and they come and shop with you. And then one more issue we end up having is that people end up going abroad to shop. They will go to East Africa, they'll go to Uganda, they'll go to Kenya if they're able to, because their money will buy them more. They'll buy more items from there compared to spending $100 in South Sudan. So sometimes it affects all the traders because obviously all of you are marketing to the same people, but right now you have a lower percent of them who can afford your products. So now that Sarah is back, I'll turn it over to Miss Sarah in the back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moga, for covering me. I was having a bit of technical hitch, but thank you so much, our viewers, for waiting in, and thank you for taking the leadership. I want to roll back to Ms. Rose and ask, what opportunities do you see for your business and for the business women entrepreneurs sector in South Sudan?
Thank you, Ms. Sarah, once again. Well, for the current inflation of the economy in the country is actually creating a mixed feeling. And this has created a negative impact, not only to the entrepreneurs, women, but also to the entire population of South Sudan, where you see the increase of violence among us, the families, is taking place simply because families themselves, become miserable and they are not able to trust themselves. If a man wake up in the morning and give 1,000 pounds, 1,000 pounds by then can really buy some greens and vegetables in the house, but it is not the same thing. So the only thing that it has created is that there is loss of hope. It's like the future is no longer bright as we women were thinking that our country is leading to. And this has really created a personal insecurity. I'm currently not in South Sudan, but I would feel how my fellow young women are going through and how situation to the young people will take the direction to. It is also creating a loss of hope. As a woman, you always feel that it's like you don't have a government in place if the facts are to be said and we are to tell the truth as women. And if such things are happening to our country, then where is the future lies and where are we going to? And what are we going to build? Where is the foundation? Where is the legacy that we try to create to? It gives a serious pain as to me, as Rose, as I'm seated here, to really see my people randomly, being seen like they are not human beings, they are seen like, animals. And when it is connected, the negative cultures now are penetrated. As somebody was singing a song recently in my language, that he's planning to marry a girl who is a working class. One thing that we are also seeing in this situation here, women who are working class are being targeted simply because you are working and you are earning money. Someone has to come from nowhere and they begins to abuse you, that they want to marry you simply because you are working. It gives me a negative sort of a thing that is not actually fair to my people. We always say that no condition is permanent, but for my country is becoming permanent, and it is really blocking the opportunities that young women were trying to create. If you see the population seeing the independence, people who are trying to create job opportunities in South Sudan are women. You find youth, men who are youth, have gone to a different direction of stealing. But we women, we are trying because we have that natural strength of a woman to try to support our counterparts. Whether your husband is working with the government or with the NGO, you try to create a support to support them. But it is not seen. It is not seen. So what I want to say is that let us, if anybody, whether leadership or church community or population, are watching at us or listening at us, let us take the responsibility into our hands, because it is going to different direction and we are going to lose. We are going to lose a lot because it is our generation that is blocked to moving forward. So this is what I would say, but I still have a hope of a woman that no condition is permanent. We will still fix it, and let us keep our hope alive as women. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rose, for being expressive. We pray that things will change. But now I just want to go back to Ms. Eden, and I want to ask you, what are the challenges South Sudanese women are facing in accessing microfinance in enterprise and in economic empowerment and development?
Thank you, Sarah. So what I can speak to is the broader pool of women, and I think that also would include South Sudanese women, to be completely honest with you. What we're facing is, one, there is an enormous rise in women entrepreneurship. And so we love to see that, right? But what we're not seeing is access to the tools, right? To the correct tools, and whether that be funding, whether that be marketing, whether that be consulting, accounting, we are not seeing them getting access to these tools. So I think there's a little bit of a gap between the resources that are in place for minority women business owners, minority women founders. There's a big gap between the resources and them. And so marketing agencies like ours really strives to sort of bridge that gap. And we do that by informing our potential clients and existing clients of, hey, there's a grant for this, or you can use this free resource, or if you're a nonprofit, you can go through this program. So I think the gap really is education about these resources. I mean, there is millions and dollars of grants that exist that for new businesses that are at every level, whether you've been in business for 2 years, whether you've been in business for 4 years. And I think that what I see is founders are very, very focused on building their brands and their businesses, that sometimes knowing that they don't know that these resources exist. So it's important to have middle agencies like ours to say, hey, let me connect you with this resource, let me connect you with this tool. So I really think, to answer your question simply, Sarah, is education, campaigns around educating female founders and female entrepreneurs about the resources that exist for them. Because if they don't know that these resources exist, they end up just, feeling like, hey, I have to do this all by myself, or I have to figure this out. But there are so many resources that exist, I would say, not just in the States, but also on a global scale. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Giden, for enlightening us. Dr. Moga, I just want to ask you, what opportunities do you see for the business sector in South Sudan, despite the challenges that we are going through at the moment?
Well, I see a lot of business opportunities. I think the thing is that the current people within South Sudan are not going away. So the population will still need to have food, they need to have transport, they need to have shelter, they need to have a place to live. So when you hone down on essential services that people cannot do it, then you see opportunities for you to enter and provide those goods to people. Perhaps it's an import-export business that you are doing. The important thing is to adapt to what are essential and what the people really need. South Sudan, when it became a country, and for the past 10 years, the people who benefited the most from our presence, I think, were really the East Africans, because they saw our oil money made South Sudan to be in a very strong economic condition for very, very many years, until, of course, especially now, given the war in Sudan, that we are experiencing an economic downturn. So those people who moved from East Africa, Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, they actually showed us the gaps in services, and a lot of them were fast to set up businesses than we South Sudanese were. And that is things like the hotel sector, restaurants, building those huge shopping centers, the modern shopping centers like Phoenicia, and then importing beauty products that are already made, setting up shops. We saw those people very quickly set up shops to sell to our people. Our people are not going away since they're still there, because where are they going to go at this point? A lot of people after the war returned back. You know that you will have some economic depression, but eventually that will release. That will ease up eventually. I know it's going to go worse before it gets better, because Sudan's war has not finished and that has to be stabilized. And we're very dependent on oil right now. And there's so many insecurities going on with the oil pipelines that is causing one of the squeeze on South Sudan. Now, secondly, I think one has to ride this economic downturn and avoid yourself from going into extinction as a business. So this means you might have to shift your mindset to providing basically, what do people need right now? People need shelter, people need homes, people need water, people need baby formula, people need baby diapers, people need their businesses, like the pharmacists. And the medical sector is basically almost immune, because people need these services and they'll pay their last money for their family member to get treatment. So there are still, and I don't know if we know this, but there were Nigerians talking seriously online about the business opportunities in South Sudan and how, oh my gosh, you only need to marry a woman there to become a citizen. That is what they were saying, right? So, like Ms. Rose Ashindel said, women of income, women with jobs become targeted. Um, People who don't have income start hating those who have a job, but they don't know how you got that job because you had to go through education, you faced a lot of pressure. So there are still a lot of business opportunities. I am very hopeful about it because we as an economy, we're still very young, and there are many things that exist in other countries that do not exist in South Sudan. So there are many people from the outside looking in and just having like, oh my gosh, this is my turn to come in and set this up, especially for those who are not being paid in SSP, right? They're being paid in dollars. And you will find, so the Somali community or the Ethiopian community, they'll combine their money from their country, transport it into dollars, and now they have more buying power than South Sudanese. So what happens is that South Sudanese might actually end up losing because you are in such an economic pressure that you sell your property for less than its actual value. You enter contracts that are not good for you, and there is a business person saying, this is my turn to enter in here. These people are suffering. They don't have any reserves. This is my turn to enter in here and set myself up, because in 5 years, when the economy stabilizes, I will be in a greater position. So this is my answer to that. And I will turn it back over to you, Ms. Sarah Nyebak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rose, and thank you for being positive. I just want to go back to Ms. Rosa Chindil. Thank you, Doctor. Rosa Chindil, you've just mentioned that you are out of the country. Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Yes, you've just mentioned that you are out of the country. And given the current challenges, economic environment in South Sudan, I just want to know, how is your business surviving in your absence?
Um, Sorry, I want to set up my phone. It is like, okay, thank you. Well, how my business is surviving actually is like a miracle, yeah? Not very stabilizing, but we are applying now the creativity, because otherwise we will fall down all over and no one will survive in this situation. Um, I still have a connection with my clients, and the only challenge is that the prices increase from where I order my products, and when you go and increase the price ahead of you from your clients, they begins to pull out slowly, and they will not tell you that they are going. So it will be you now to at least see, for you to survive, you don't need to exaggerate the prices, as a way of, they say it also, God tried his people, and you have to have faith. Is the faith that I mentioned before, that here we have to apply faith in business. We need not to really exaggerate the price in order to maintain your clients. As doctor mentioned before, you have to maintain still your quality and your prices, at least, and your connection, to not to lose the clients. So currently, this is what I do. I still have connection with my clients, and the prices, even if I add something small, but I have to inform them earlier on that, you know what, next supply, you will add at least some little on top, just as a form of, also you need to know that I transport them from where I order them from, and all that, so that he or she will be able to prepare their minds, because the trauma of money is becoming an issue, and we cannot blame anybody. So this is how I'm surviving currently. Thank you. Back to you, Miss Sarah.
Um, Thank you so much, Miss Rose, for letting us know how you're coping with the situation that is currently on the ground. I want to go back to Miss Giden. Ms. Gideon, a lot has been happening here in South Sudan, and I'm sure you've heard of the electronic cargo that was recently introduced, and there was a lot of strike here and there. And it seems like nowadays bringing things along the border has become very, very expensive. So, what are the coping mechanisms that you can recommend that women in business in South Sudan can use to counter the current economic challenges in South Sudan?
I think that one coping mechanism is because, as we know, our people are very, very communal. I think one key coping mechanism is to speak to other entrepreneurs, really and truly. Having conversation with other business women, right? Hey, what are you doing? How was it trying to get your products over the border? Really speak to other female entrepreneurs to understand the challenges that they're facing and how they've overcome them. And maybe, you could learn something from them, they can learn something from you. But I think it's an opportunity for the business community in South Sudan to come together stronger than before, because now you're facing the same challenges. So your solutions might also be very similar. So I think one, creating a community or continuing a community of where you can share information and tips with other business people. And then two, I think not giving up. I know it sounds very cliche, but not giving up. Because I think a lot of times when we're facing an economic downturn, you might say, there's no point in what I'm doing. Nobody cares about marketing right now. Everybody just wants to buy bread and eggs and make sure that they are meeting their essential things to live, right? But I think it's really important to not give up and continue, like the ladies were saying before, continue that relationship with your clients, even if they're not buying from you. And so one great way that we like to promote continuing communication with your client is through email campaigns, through having a newsletter, having some channel where you are constantly communicating with your clients or your customers. I think that's really important. In South Sudan, where internet is a little bit limited and only, key people would have access to internet or, phones and things like that, I think word of mouth is important. I think hosting small scale events is also important, just to continue that awareness about your business or your brand. Obviously, a small scale event that's not overly costly, but we need to keep continuing pushing awareness about the brand, regardless of how the economy is doing. And I think that's really important. Back to you, Ms. Sarah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gideon, for that coping mechanism. I hope our viewers are listening and they will be able to apply what you're suggesting. Miss Dr. Moga, thank you so much for being here today. And I heard you earlier, and you spoke about your business, how passionate you are about your business. But currently, the taxes that have been imposed in the market are kicking so many women out of the business. So many women are not engaging, especially in the small scale. So, how can you encourage such women to continue coping in such situations?
That is a very difficult question, um, because what I know is that um, the taxes basically decrease your profit. And when you are working hard every day, opening your shop, and you're getting taxed in different ways, left and right, and you're getting squeezed from different places, some people end up closing their shop. They would rather not have a shop um, than lose money. So I don't really have a good answer for it. I think, like Ms. Rose Achendel said, we just end up having to live by faith, and we have to think about how our mothers, when a lot of us were displaced in Khartoum, how despite things were very hard, some of them were still trying to operate their small market, small store, sell their alcohol, and once in a while the agents will come and just throw all your goods on the floor or tell you that you're operating illegally. And then you still go back and do it tomorrow because you have children to feed. So I don't have an answer to it, but I would say the most answer really relies on government. If taxes could be standardized so that you know what rate you're paying, and you can basically base your the prices of your goods, and you can decide whether to import something based on whether you'll make a profit from it or not. Because if at the end of the day, if you're not making any profit at all, you're going to shut down that business because you cannot continue operating. You either have to end up being neutral, or you make a profit, or you'll shut down. I think the biggest answer to that, it really relies on government standardizing taxes and making it fair across the board and making it a stable rate that encourages business. I believe one of the things is you just don't know what your tax rate is going to be, because it's different people coming to your shop and demanding something today, something tomorrow, and then there's something you have to give, behind your back to the pocket to allow your shop to operate. So all these things add up. So although I don't have a good question for that, I don't have a good answer for that, I think it just ends up being something where government entities can assist with that for the women.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moga. What you've given is actually very insightful. Uh, most of the things lies with our government, and in fact, it would be very good if they can at least exempt some tax for women, especially women with small business skills, so that they are able to operate. Because once you impose this heavy tax, most of them are going to get out of business. Most of them are not able to even afford the renting spaces nowadays, and it has become very, very challenging. Um, I want to go to Miss Rose Achindel. What are the challenges, or what recommendations would you give to that woman who is having that small business scale and moving forward?
Thank you once again, Sarah. I would like to supplement on Dr. Moga on the question posted earlier to her before I go back to my question. I would really comment that we need to work hand in hand with our government, because our government is like he's the everything. He's the one that is protecting us. He's the one that has to a role to play when it comes to even supporting with the capitals. Is supposed to be its duty, and also we have to, instead of allowing women to get discouraged and they go back home, we as the women have to support them and advocate for them in order to, get information and get trained on how to stand on their feet as they move forward. So this is what I will supplement. And moving to my question is that our women has to be supported. That is very, very vital in any either private or in at the community level. We have to stand with them and give them a full training and advocate. And because I'm also working as I'm leading one of the women organization. Our priority in supporting women entrepreneurs is to empower them. Right now, we are running a project called Empower Influence Women in such kind of business and in any other rights of women. Sometimes back, women got to relax, because they didn't know where to go and they do not have information. But this time round, I know 50% of women, including even women at the rural area, they are able to know where to go and where to start. Only that when they're interrupted by the negative cultures that always, prevent women from doing what they are supposed to do. So it will be up to us. And this is an appeal to all other supporters, to the women of South Sudan, be it international community, be it women to women themselves, like my sister and the doctor, who is actually based in the US, my sister Kiden, and any other person. South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum is actually putting us together to ensure that we support each other in any ways. If I know the information about where we can get a capital to start up with the small business, I have to run and, knock the door at Sarah and say, Sarah, you know what? There is somewhere where we have this and this and that. Sarah will wake up because she did not know that something is happening somewhere. And by doing that, we will be able to move forward, and we should not be, reluctant or should not be discouraged. But mostly now what is happening is the discouragement. So let us talk, let us support, let us, inform, let us communicate, let us coordinate. And we see someone who is sleeping under the tree will actually wake up and take up a very great growth, and they will grow in our faith. And this is what will make us move on forward in the Republic of South Sudan. Thank you, and back to you, my sister, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Rose. I want to go to Ms. Kiden. What is your recommendation moving forward?
Thank you, Sarah. Before I answer that question, I really want to touch on what Ms. Rose just said. I think that was very, very insightful and valuable commentary. I am for promoting diversity in business. And what that means is we want our women and young girls to explore different business avenues. And whether that be beauty, whether that be entertainment, whether that be consulting, whether that be government contracting, starting a nonprofit organization, because that also is a business. So I think promoting the diversity in business is really, really important. I think a lot of times our women have been, and we know our story, where it's okay, you're selling food at the market or you're selling makeup here. And I like to encourage women, not just South Sudanese women, but women all over, to explore different business ventures. I mean, I myself, I was not that great at makeup and not very fashionable. So getting into consulting was where I found my niche, and, marketing, consulting, business development. So I encourage all the women, all the girls, to explore different business avenues. And you might have a bakery business on the side, and then you might also be a consultant. So there's many different ways where we can tap into our creativity and our skill set and our talent and our knowledge base and create that into a business. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is approaching nonprofits like a business rather than just simply charity. I think is so important, because a lot of the business practices that you would keep in mind or carry out while you're running an entity is very similar to running a nonprofit. Things like financing, having a marketing plan, having a business plan, having people that you work with and coordinate with. All of these things are very similar across the board. But to your question, Ms. Sarah, how do we move forward? I think continuing to have conversations like this is definitely one key way, I have to say. South Sudanese Women's Intellectual Reform has been at the forefront of bringing these key issues that South Sudanese women face and making it something that we all pay attention to. So I think continuing to have dialogue like this. And then one tip that I would have for entrepreneurs, small business owners, nonprofit owners is continue to do market research, right? Market research doesn't just start and stop when you're starting your business. You are supposed to do market research all the way through, because we know that the economy changes. And so the more you do your market research, the more you research on your competitors or research more on your product or your service, the better off you'll be in a better position. So I think the way to move forward is continue to have discussions, panels, forums, even business events that highlight some of our challenges. And then B, for entrepreneurs to constantly sharpen their tool, because I think it's important as you pour into your business as an entrepreneur, you also need to pour into yourself. And sometimes that means taking a little bit of time to educate yourself on what's happening in your business and what are other entrepreneurs or your mentors doing that you could borrow or take from and implement in your own practice. So thank you again. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kiden, for your contributions. They're very valuable. I want to go to Dr. Moga, and I want to ask you, what are your recommendations moving forward?
My recommendations are going back to basics. I am going to go back to encouraging young girls to pursue education, because what we have seen now is that it is the women who got degrees even during the war. Those who got degrees in East Africa, those who got degrees from Juba University, those who got degrees from Ahliya, from Ahfad in Khartoum, they are the ones who are holding their families these days because they were able to get jobs. They have good English, writing, speaking, and those things, and they're able to insert themselves into positions opened by the NGO sector. So I'm going to go back that you need to prepare yourself academically so that the next round, you are poised and able and ready to enter the job market. The other thing is, I think organizations like this, South Sudan Women's Intellectual Forum, I really applaud the way we post positions for other women, so that it opens opportunities for women who do not know there's a job posting here, this NGO has this. So this is women helping women. What I would love to see is also, as Mrs. Rose Ashindal said, is if you know of an opportunity in finance, you know, of an organization that is giving out funds, even if you don't qualify for it, you tell another sister, hey, this is happening. Why don't you apply for this? This applies to your business. There's an educational opportunity. There's the scholarship here. Why don't you apply for this? So this is ways that we can survive this economic downturn. And then I think the other thing also is, as I see, as our women get educated, we have to enter into government, because that is how we can advocate for other women. I am very pleased every time I see a posting about a woman being appointed to a government position. And what I know of that is, okay, now this is a woman who has money to feed her family. She's going to feed 10 people. She's going to educate people, and she's going to advocate for women within government for causes that help other women. So this is a roundabout way of answering your question, but it's basically going back to basics. And as a business owner, you also have to go back to the basics of a business foundation. Now you have to really run yourself as a business, or else you will face getting phased out or losing out in this phase of high inflation. So that's my answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moga, and thank you so much, Ms. Rosa Chindil. Thank you so much, Ms. Kiden. I've been really inspired by you guys this afternoon. Listening to you guys has been really remarkable, and I believe the women of South Sudan are also inspired. Before we come to the end of this interesting discussion, I would like to thank our great panelists for taking time to participate in this conversation. My big thanks goes to everyone who has tuned in this afternoon. I would like to thank our team members who are working behind the scene for their dedication, commitment, and to ensure that there's a successful discussion. We have now come to the end of our show. Good morning, good evening, and good night to every one of you who is in a different part of the world. From my end, it's an evening. So thank you all, and may God bless you.
Same to you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right. Have a good evening.